So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our friend and partner, Nathan Houston. We've known Nathan for several years now, and he is definitely family, and he's also one of our Boost ambassadors, and we just have such a wonderful partnership with him, and we're so excited to have him here this morning. So Nathan is the founder of IAMIMPACT in Sacramento, California. I know there's some Sacktown people here today. So look at Katie's giving you a little. So let's give a warm welcome to Nathan Houston. Nathan, take it away.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you to the Boost Collaborative for having me. I'm super excited. I don't know about you all, but I'm super excited this morning. And so I just want to welcome you out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to be sharing. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to share. And I'm going to stop sharing. And the reason for that is because, as Tia said earlier, I want to make sure that we actually are able to connect. We can see each other, right? When we are sharing the screen, our pictures become smaller. We can't really see each other. So I just want to take time to make sure that we're actually in the space together. And again, I want to welcome you and thank you for being here. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. So today, hopefully in the right space, we're talking about building social and emotional learning community. Building social and emotional learning communities. And so when we think about building these communities, right, it's very important that we're just, one, consciously aware, right? Being aware of what's going on. And so when we think about building the community, what I want you to think about is this quote right here, right? So I'm gonna stop the music, and I want you to look at this quote. And so in my business class, they said, note takers are the money makers, right? And so in education, I want to say note takers are the life changers, right? Those of us who are taking notes, right? We're focused in, lasered in, and figuring out what can I take from this, right? And there's going to be things where you're like, I absolutely agree. Then there's going to be other ways where you're like, actually, I don't agree with that. And that's absolutely fine. But I want you to write this down. It starts with me, but it doesn't end with me, right? So when we think about showing up into these spaces, it starts with you, the individual, but it doesn't end with you. All right. So that's the first quote that I want you to write down, is that it starts with you, but doesn't end with you. And then for those of you, some of you may be familiar with this work or may have seen this slide before. Peter Sange, who does a lot of great work on systems thinking and how we show up, right? And so one of the things that we do in our expanded learning meetings is we talk about how we show up within the space. And so this morning, I want to encourage you, and it's okay, right? Some of us, we might feel like a prisoner, we might feel like a vacationer, we're going to have a sophisticated, and so really want to just break these down really quick. The prisoner, that's that person who shows up like, I'm just here because I had to book PD so that I can clock my hours, and that's why I'm here, right? Then you have, and so I'm not really too interested in what's going on. Then you have the vacationer, the person who's like, here, I'm here to get away, right? I seen the opportunity to do PD and get away from the normal routine of work, so I'm here on vacation. So really don't expect me to chime in. And then you have the sophisticate, right? That individual, for all of us, I know I've been there, right? That person who knows it. Like, I know this information. I've heard this before. Why do I have to pay attention? Or I should be leading the class. And so, and then we have lastly, right, this quadrant of explorer. And as you can see, I put Dora in there. My daughter helped me pick out this picture. And so Dora the Explorer, if you're not familiar with cartoons, she likes to explore, right? And so she has her backpack and she has her buddy Boots with her. And Boots is the little monkey. And they go on these journeys, right, of exploring. And so today, within this workshop of building social and emotional learning communities, I invite you to explore it with me, to explore the different perspectives that I'm going to share today. And as we get into it, it's okay. If you find yourself feeling like a prisoner, you find yourself feeling like a vacation or sophisticate, but I want to encourage you to try to get back to that place of being an explorer, right? And so we want to, next thing is, right, another quote that I want you to write down. As much as about you, it's not about you. As much as it's about you, it's not about you. And so Nate's like, wait, what do you mean it's not about me? Right? That is, I'm the person who shows up. Like if I don't show up, who's going to love on the kids? Who's going to make sure that this gets done? And you're absolutely right. And that's why, as much as it is about you, it's not about you. Yes, you have to show up. Yes, the work starts with you. But at the end of the day, all of us who are here, who are educators, we know that there's a bigger picture, a bigger purpose in which we're contributing to. All right. So I just want us to be conscious and aware of that as we think about building that social and emotional learning community, that as much as it's about you, because we got to have your needs met, it's also not about you. It's about our babies. It's about our colleagues that we work with. And so this quote has helped me get through some difficult times. And so I just wanted to share it with you all. And so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into some mindfulness, because I think it's important that we actually, again, check into the space, show up and get present. And we're going to take maybe about a minute. And at this time, I will invite you to turn off your cameras for the sake of this this mindfulness moment. And what you're going to do is I'm going to play some music, and I just want you to begin to breathe. And I know that may be like, no duh, Nate. That's why I'm like, I have to breathe in order to live. I want you to be conscious with your breathing. All right. So I want you to focus on inhaling, right, and exhaling through the nose, and making sure that you have the brain and belly connection, your diaphragm, breathing from the stomach, making sure that your stomach is expanding as you breathe. All right. And so we want to do some conscious breathing for a moment. And this, again, just begin to reflect and check into this space. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with that. Begin to breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Breathe. Take a deep breath. We're almost done. All right. We can turn our cameras back on. And in a moment, we're going to go into our breakout rooms. And so hopefully you took that time to just breathe, check in with yourself, checking into this space. And so what I want you to do right now is hashtag or #, right? One word of how you are feeling right now. So drop down in the chat, hashtag one word of how you are feeling right now. And I'm starting. There we go. We got calm, peaceful. There we go. And so in a minute, we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and we're going to share with each other. And we're going to give you time to dialogue. And in our breakout sessions, what you're going to do is share your name, and then share the word of how you're feeling right now. And then talk about the weather where you are right now. All right, just kind of share what does the weather look like where you are right now. And I'm going to give you each group will have about 2 minutes to just check in with each other, share that word, and then also talk about the weather where you are. And again, our focus, right, is building SEL, right, building that community. And so that's why there's this emphasis on making sure that we actually commune and that we fellowship and talk to one another. Because I remember in school, maybe some of you might remember this. Have any of you ever, like, going to school, you went to school with somebody a long time, and never actually knew their name, and you actually probably describe that person by maybe a backpack or shoes or a coat that they wore, right? And meanwhile, you probably went to school with them all 4 years, and you're like, the one with the backpack. And everybody's like, yeah. And so what we want to do is avoid that. We want to be able to, call each other by name, right? And be familiar with each other. And that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and we will be back in about 2.5 minutes. And hopefully for everyone else, and actually now that people are coming back, I'm gonna open it up. I want to open it up to what was going on inside the rooms. What were some of the words? What was some of the weather? Does anybody want to share? Anybody want to share? See all these smiling faces? That's a cutest smile, because some of y'all not smiling.
I shared how I'm glad that we've gotten past the smoke here in Northern California. Hopefully.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Vanessa. Anyone else want to share maybe the weather or the word that you selected of how you're feeling right now?
Laura Watson here. I'm up in Sonoma County. I think it was pretty funny. Half of our group was in Chicago, Illinois area, and they're sitting there freezing with frost. And then myself and the other, I think it was Rick, he's in San Diego and I'm in Northern California. And we're like, dude, we're hitting over 100 today. So it was like total polar opposites. But just hearing you guys talk about the weather, but it was good to meet them.
And I'm saying I'm from Ohio, so I'm on the East Coast, and it's starting to get into that fall weather where it's cold and gloomy and stuff. So I'm very jealous of the 97-100-degree weather. I'm not gonna lie.
Don't be too.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say you don't have to be too jealous. It's hot.
I'm from Canada, so I'm right by Niagara Falls, New York, kind of. So I attended Boost last year, so it was really fun, and I get all the emails, and this was an interesting topic for me. But we're fall weather, cool and rainy and stuff like that. So I had 2 people from California, so it was interesting. And hello to everyone.
Nice. Thank you. And then thank you for being here. I want to thank again everyone for being here, and thank you all for sharing. Right, when we start thinking about building a social and emotional learning community, it takes intentionality, right? So that's another hot word if you want to write that down, right? It takes intentionality in order for us to build a space where not just our young people, but our staff, right? Ourselves can really focus in on social emotional learning. We have to be intentional, all right? And so I'm gonna go back into sharing my screen. When we talk about building SEL communities, right, social emotional learning, the goal is that you're going to learn something today, right? As you can see Kevin Hart down there, you're going to learn today. We're going to watch a brief little video. It's going to talk about what is social emotional learning. We always hear it's a lot of topics are out there, and just a quick little breakdown of what social emotional learning is.
What exactly is social emotional learning? What's all the hype about SEL, and why should you care? Social emotional learning, or SEL for short, teaches you how to identify and understand the ways you might think and feel. SEL is a way for students to develop skills that lead to better mental health, better grades, and better success in life. SEL teaches you how to increase positive energy and subtract negative energy. SEL helps you develop the skills you need to live your best life. SEL includes 5 core skills: self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. Self-awareness is the ability to identify and understand your own emotions. Social awareness is understanding the emotions of others. It also involves empathy, which is the ability to take the perspective of others. Self-management is the ability to manage your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It includes being able to manage stress and your time effectively. Responsible decision-making is simply the ability to make good choices. This includes avoiding peer pressure and thinking of consequences before you make a decision. And finally, relationship skills. which is the ability to keep and maintain healthy relationships. This includes choosing the right friends, being a good friend, and even resolving conflict that might come up. Here are some benefits of SEL. It leads to better academic achievement and a better understanding of who you are. You learn how to handle relationships and friendships. And let's be honest, you'll probably make more money and get a better job if you have good SEL skills. So, what does social emotional learning mean to you? Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and visit our website to learn more about SEL. Exactly, is social emotional.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out, right, in this video is that we see a lot of emphasis on the youth, right? There's a lot of youth in the background. And today, one of the things that we're going to focus on is out of the 2 competencies. And if you're not familiar with social emotional learning, I also want to recommend that you go to castle.org. Castle.org, that's a collaborative for academic and social emotional learning. And they have a more in-depth and robust breakdown of what SEL is and all the competencies. And for today, and what we're going to do is focus on, we've seen that first one, self-awareness. Thank you for dropping that down in the chat. Self-awareness, right? And so when I thought about when I think about expanded learning, or I think about education, I see so much emphasis on young people, right? So much emphasis on, we got to teach our kid SEL skills. We got to embed our lesson plans with SEL for our young people. And then it dawned on me, like, what about us, right? What about us as the leaders within the space, right? In order for our young people to be able to develop their social emotional learning skills, they also need to see, right, have a visual of adults, that would be us, right, who are modeling those competencies, who are modeling those skill sets. When we talk about self-awareness, right, self-management, relationship skills, are we, as the leader, in these spaces, modeling that behavior, right? And one of the things that I like to write, you can write this down, you're not just role models, you are real models, right? You are not just role models, you are real models. And the reason I like to say real models is because you're actually, right, going through this process, whether you know it or not, of developing your social and emotional learning skills as you're serving your young people and your colleagues, right? Think about this. How many of you have sent an email before? Sent an email, probably everybody on this call, right? You sent an email and you use your SEL skills before you drafted that email. Or maybe some of you might have typed up a whole email and then realized, you know what? After reviewing and reflecting on that email, you know what? Let me delete this email. This is not the right thing to say, right? Because your SEL skill kicked in and said, right, your self-awareness said, you know what? This is not a good idea, right? And then the self-management piece kicked in and said, I need to regulate how I'm feeling right now, and let me go through this email, maybe change some words, right? And problem solve. So when we think about social emotional learning, I see so much emphasis on our young people, but what about us, right? Because this is the thing about social emotional learning. You never fully get there, right? It's not like where we can say, anybody on this call say, I absolutely master every single skill. I don't have any flaws. I'm perfect. No. We all have some type of flaw. We all have setbacks. And so when we think about, right, somebody dropped down in the chat, said forever growth, right? We're forever learning, and our young people need to be able to see that. So when they see that real model in front of them, oh, Mr. Terry has issues just like I do. But Mr. Terry is able to manage his emotions, right, and problem solve to make sure that he's able to deal with the situation that's at hand, right? So when we think about the SEL, I just wanted us to be mindful of that, right? Another thing to think about when you think of SEL, think of it as a compass, not a map, right? Social emotional learning is a compass, not a map, right? Somebody want to break down any really outdoorsy people in here? That's not me. So when I ask anybody out there, right, who deals with maps and compasses, somebody want to tell me what's the difference between a map and a compass?
A compass just says what direction you can go. And a map has how to get there.
Thank you, Tiffany, right? So that's exactly right. When we think about a compass and we think about a map, right? Social emotional learning is a compass. It actually points us in the direction in which we should head, where we should go, right? What are the needs that need to be addressed? When we think about a map, it's going to lay out all those different things that need to do that you need to do. And I think this is the reason that I wanted to share this portion is because I realized that in my experience, I remember talking to a teacher and they're like, Nate, I just don't have time to do no social emotional learning. I got teaching time, I got instructional minutes I got to get in. I do not have the time for social emotional learning. And what I realized is that they were looking at social emotional learning as an additive, right? It's something added in addition to that they had to add into their lesson plans. But as I talked to somebody who's on this call right now, I talked to Miss Vanessa yesterday, who was an educator out here in Cali. And we talked about social emotional learning is not an additive, right? It's already in what you're already doing. So when we think about these bullet points, right? There's no pure model that can be simply implemented in any community, right? And that's when you think about SEL. That's why there's certain communities that people feel like it doesn't work because they probably tried to take somebody else's model and incorporate it into their system, right? And into their culture, into their climate. And we have to be mindful of those things. When you think about all models are culture bound, all social emotional learning models are culture bound. What does that mean? When we think about our cultures, our upbringings, right? Our religious backgrounds, our creeds, our heritage, all that plays a factor into our SEL development. So when we think about being able to build that social emotional learning community, we have to be mindful that the model is going to be bound by the culture that is currently there, right? And so SEL should be built from the bottom up. I love this part, right? By communities and dialogue, assessing their needs and resources and applying the principles to their own situations. So when we think about social emotional learning and creating that building that community, it should be built up from the ground up. So what does that mean? When we're thinking about building a social emotional learning community from our staff, from the students, right, to the staff, to our admin, it should be built from the ground up, right? Taking into consideration, what are the needs of our young people? What are the needs of our staff? What are the needs of our management, right? So SEL is an invitation into dialogue and exploration. And that's why we have, again, I think some resistance when we think about, I don't have time for it, or that doesn't work, right? And I remember having some educators come to me and say, Nate, why is it that these kids are paying attention in your program or in your class setting and not in mine? Why is that happening? And when I broke it down, I said it's about relationship, and again, we're embedding SEL in everything that we do, right? And so I just want us to be conscious of this. And when you think about social emotional learning, don't bear yourself down thinking like you have to know it all. This is, again, what I love about SEL is that you don't have to know it all, right? One of the things that you just need to be mindful of and conscious of are the competencies, right? So when we think about SEL as a whole, we're going to break down like the different competencies, but today we're going to be focusing just on social self-awareness and self-management, right? Then we think about what is the SEL community, a group of individuals committed to understanding, developing, and cultivating both their individual and collective social and emotional learning competencies. So when you think about SEL, what I want you to think about is looking at it as a team, right? So when we look at social emotional learning as a whole, look at it as building a team, right? And so who's on our team? We think about our young people, right? Maybe your colleagues, maybe your management. And so when we think about the word team, right? Team, the definition that I like to use, Peter Sange's definition, he says that team is a group of individuals, right, who need each other to get something done. A group of individuals who need each other to get something done. So when we think about building a social and emotional learning community, that means that we need one another within this space to accomplish certain tasks. All right? And so what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to go into some small groups again, and we're going to actually talk about building that community and what that should look like. But one of the things that I wanted to share was, in building your communities, you need to set some expectations, right? So here are some of the standard expectations that I set within our community, right? Within our workspace, right? Speak with your heart, listen with your heart, speak with respect, listen with respect, honor privacy, and remain present. So let me ask you all this, right? I'm gonna just share, I'm gonna give you like 20 seconds to look at those. And then I want you all, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I want you to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down to whether you can meet these expectations, all right? So speak with your heart, listen with your heart, speak with respect, listen with respect, honor privacy, remain present, all right? So about 10 more seconds. And so now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and give me a thumbs up, thumbs to the side, thumbs down, or you're like, I can't do that, right? So let me see, I got some thumbs up, some virtual thumbs up. All right, all right, so I see a lot of thumbs up. We're going through multiple screens. So a lot of thumbs up, right? So my next question to you then is, when you sing, and I'll go back to sharing, right? Speak with your heart. Speak with your heart. Somebody share with me, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Speak with your heart. Speak with your heart.
To me, that means being comfortable with being vulnerable and to showing your true self and understanding that everyone is human and everyone has their own struggles. So to be vulnerable and open about it kind of breaks down those barriers and helps everybody see their authentic self.
Thank you, thank you. Someone else want to share? Got the thumb, right? Anyone else want to share, like, what does that mean to you when you saw it and you look at speaking with your heart? What does that mean to you?
So, hi, Nathan. I was gonna kind of say the same thing, just being vulnerable, and we kind of shared that in one of our leadership meetings, just being vulnerable, because I know there are a lot of things coming into this remote learning. There's a lot of things that I didn't know how to do technically, and I struggled at first trying to do it myself, because I'm the counselor. I should know this. I should know that. I should, and so just when I met with the team and then we talked about vulnerability and just being present, I opened myself up and I said, I need some help. Can one of the teachers, can you show me how to set up the Google Classroom? Can you show me how to do this? And it's just being vulnerable and allowing yourself, putting yourself out there and allowing yourself to possibly be hurt by someone who is not in the same place that you are.
Thank you, right? And so when we think about the first expectation of speaking with your heart, one of the things that I want us to be mindful of is that, again, based on our experiences, our perspectives, right, we might have a difference of opinion. And so what I realize is that a lot of times in these spaces, our educational spaces, we make an assumption, right? And we look at another one of those expectations is speak with respect, right? And so let's take it down to our young people. We tell our kids to be respectful, but it's rare that we actually define what respect means, right? And so then you'll have a kid, right? And all of us we come from different walks of life, right? And so I'll share from maybe some of the neighborhoods that I grew up in, right? Talking like this, right? Or being a little bit more louder, right? Come off as a sign of respect, right? And so when we think about our spaces for others, it may be talking like this. How are you doing? How's your day? And so we have to be mindful that words matter, right? Words are important, but a lot of times within our spaces, we don't define them, right? We make an assumption like, oh, I'm gonna be respectful, right? And then you're not looking at me while I'm talking. Now I feel like you're disrespectful, because we never set an expectation that, hey, for me, within our space, in our community, right, this is what respect looks, sounds, and feels like. And that's why we have to be mindful of that when we think about building that social emotional learning community. We have to be very intentional from the ground up. So something as simple as Speak with respect. What does that mean? When we think about that in a general context, we might say, yeah, I can do that, right? Everybody's thumbs will went up, right? But then we start thinking like, well, I don't know, maybe respect might mean something different based off of our experiences, right? Based off of, and we start thinking of speak your heart. Sometimes too, that may mean to somebody that I'm gonna say how I feel, what I feel, right? At any given time, and I'm not going to consider anybody's feelings. And then we wonder like, they hurt my feelings or I'm offended now because we ask people to speak with their heart. And that's what was on their heart. So we have to be, again, then what I'm getting at is we have to be very intentional when we're building this space, right? We have to be intentional. So setting those expectations, and I'm gonna go back into sharing my screen. So we wanna do that. So we also thinking of things like remain present, right? Because that can mean something different, honor privacy, right? So I like to share with our groups, some of the times when we're having with this space or we're getting deep and vulnerable, as someone was just sharing, right? What happens here stays here, like Vegas, right? But again, if we don't set those expectations, and we might have conversations or dialogue with some of our, maybe a colleague who wasn't at a meeting, and where somebody shared something, it's like, hey, I shared that with this group with the expectation that it wasn't going to leave here. But we weren't intentional about speaking that out. And I can be honest, right, with you all. How many of you have had a relationship issue? Just it doesn't, platonic, romantic, whatever, had a relationship issue, right? And some of those issues stem from a lack of expectation or unspoken expectation, right? You have an expectation in your mind that you expect them to meet, right? And if they don't meet it, you find yourself upset because the assumption is you should know, right? Because you've been hanging out with me, so you should know what I expect. But again, we never talked about your expectation, right? So when we think about this space, being able to build our communities of embedding them with SEL, this is what it takes. It takes us being able to set expectations, right? And being mindful of self. And that's what we're going to get into next, is the self-awareness component, right? So I'm looking at time, and so I want to make sure that we have time to get into our sessions. So one of the questions that I want to ask you all, and we're going to really just focus on, is, are you an artist, right? So give me a thumbs up if you're an artist on this call. Give me a thumbs up. Are you an artist? Are you an artist? All right, got some thumbs down, and I see no thumbs at all. All right, some thumbs down. People like, I am not an artist. All right, so now I'm going to put this slide back up. I'm going to share another definition with you. If you look at, if you Google the word artist, right, it says a person who is skilled at a particular task or occupation. All right, so I'm going to ask again, how many of you are artists? How many of you are? All the thumbs went up, right? This self-awareness piece that says somebody, oh, wait, I am skilled in a certain subject or occupation. I am an artist, right? And so what I want us to be mindful of is this component of being self-aware, right? Of knowing who you are. And so I'm gonna share this brief story before we go into our breakout sessions. And we're gonna talk about what are some of your skill sets. You're gonna share some of your skill sets with some of the folks on this call. What I realized through this self-awareness component, again, remember, we put so much emphasis on the young people. What I realized for me, I had to look inward, and I realized something about myself, right? And this happened, Tia, I shared this too a little bit. I didn't go as in depth, but I shared a little bit last year at the Boost conference, in our Boost ambassador meeting we had. I talked about this conference, right? If you haven't been to the Boost conference, you have to go. I talked about how this conference affirmed and confirmed me, right? My beliefs, who I am, what I am possible, or my potential, what I can accomplish. But I realized something that even deeper, that some of the issue or the reason that I was having such a hard time swallowing the pill of being a presenter or being in this position of leadership and having this platform, right, to being able to travel and speak, was because of the little black boy inside of me, right? Where I'm from, where I grew up, it is not a common thing to have somebody who looks like me, right, who dresses like me, right, be in spaces of leadership and educate. That is not a common thing. So what I realized in this self-awareness journey was the reason it was so hard for me to overcome, to launch the business, to get these things in order was because the little black boy inside of me was saying, you can't do this, right? This is not a common thing, right? You are not worthy because of the things that I had heard, because of the things that people had shared with me, right? Because of the things that I was exposed to, right? So what I realized is that the little black boy inside of me was telling the person who was growing and overcoming was that you don't deserve, you're not worthy of it. And so I learned this process of going deeper with myself is that as I started to correlate and connect the dots was that, wow, that's why I've been having such a hard time in being able to accomplish these things because I wasn't in tune with what was going on, right? I wasn't able to identify what was the big holdup. So this is what happens when we look right to ourselves. We start to develop that self-awareness, competency and skill set. We're able to look at things internally and maybe help link them right to things that are happening externally. All right, so we're going to get into our sessions, and I'm going to give you all about 2 minutes, just about 2 minutes to share what are some of your skill sets. And when I say skill sets, I'm talking about things like as far as maybe you are a good listener, maybe you're good in math, maybe you're good in language arts. So what are some of your skill sets? We'll go into our breakout sessions, and you have 2 minutes to share. All right. As we're coming back, go ahead and drop down in the chat. Some of your skill sets. Hashtag your skill set. Hashtag your skill set. Definitely want to see what we had pop up in the room. I know within my breakout, I want to thank we had Stephanie, Brian, and Carlos. And Carlos talked about his skill set was problem solving, right? Being in education for a while, we have to solve problems. Ms. Stephanie said hers was patience, right? How many of y'all have those that patience? Is that let me see some snaps. Y'all got the patience. See, some of y'all like, nope, that's not me. I am impatient. Right? So we think about, and then Ms. Brienne said her skill set was creativity, right? That's that individual that I need to work along the side of, right? Of being creative. You're that person, right, who might have, when you're taking notes, everything is nice and highlighted and color coordinated, right? That's not me, right? So when we think about creativity, we think about problem solving. What I want to drive home is that within this space, when we're talking about building a SEL community, building a community of social emotional learning, what's important is that we have to be mindful of our skill sets. We need to be mindful of who we are, right? And so remember today, I just wanted to focus on self-awareness and self-management. And just real briefly to talk about, right, self-management is that piece that when we're thinking about being able to manage our emotions, being able to manage our actions. I'll share this brief story. I love Walgreens. Walgreens, anytime I go to Palm Springs to the Boost Conference, I always stop by Walgreens, or I tell myself that I will just pick certain items up in Walgreens when I get to Palm Springs for the Boost Conference. And so I was out actually at the Boost Conference, and I needed a lint roller. I needed a lint roller because I had a black shirt on, and so I didn't want to walk into the space real linty. So I said, let me get a lint roller, right? So I walked into Walgreens, again, my favorite store. I walked in, and I seen that they have vanilla Cokes on sale, right? I love vanilla Cokes. I'm like, ooh, let me get some vanilla Cokes, 2 for $3. So I got, right, 4 of those. I didn't need them, but I said, hey, they're on sale. Why not? Then I looked the other, right? The soda aisle was along the chip aisle. So I said, ooh, they also have Tostitos Scoops chips on sale. Not the small bag, the big bag. So I'm like, ooh, Tostitos Scoops. Maybe we could do a little hotel party, right? So I'll get some Tostito chips, Scoops. And mind you, I don't even eat these type of chips, right? Not to say that I have anything against Tostitos, but never really my thing, right? So I was just like, but they're on sale. Big bag, 2 for $5. Gotta get them. Right, so now I'm like, I got my hands full, and I'm walking back to the register, and I get to the register, I'm like, oh, they got Kit Kat for sale. My favorite candy, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar, right? So I get some Kit Kats on the register, right? Get checked out, get to the car, I'm like, yo, I forgot something. Anybody remember what I forgot?
The lint roller.
The lint roller.
My lint roller. So again, we put so much emphasis on our young people, right? Having these skills, making sure they are able to rise to our standards. But even us, Nathan, the adult, forgot right, set this task, this goal to go in and get a lint roller and got everything but a lint roller. How many of our young people are just like Nate? On their way to the bathroom, get distracted. Oh, a butterfly, right? So now they're chasing a butterfly down the hallway instead of going to the bathroom. You walk out the classroom and you see the kid chasing the butterfly, or to you, it just looks like they're running down the hallway. Now you're upset, right? Come here. I told you, you said you're going to the restroom, but it was a butterfly. And no, there's no butterfly, right? So we start thinking about these things, right? All right, so I want to calm us down for a minute, calm myself down for a moment. When we think about social emotional learning, this is real life. It happens, right? We get distracted. And we think about that piece of self-management. Yes, even for me, I went in there needing a lint roller and came out with everything but that. And so it's the same thing with our young people within these spaces, is that we can show up, right, with the right intention, right? We can show up ready to go, and life happens. You see vanilla Cokes, you see Tostitos chips, like, oh, right? And mind you, I'm supposed to be on a diet, but they're on sale. Like, I have to do it. So when we think about this skill set of developing who we are, right? That's why this is so important. Going back to what I said earlier, you're not just role models, you're real models. Young people need to see that. Even Mr. Nate, as I'm telling you, you need to go straight to the restroom when I work with my middle school kids and back. Not going to the front of the school to see who's still hanging out, not walking down to Starbucks, right? Not going down to Jack in the Box to get a burger and coming back. No, I'm setting a task for you. And this is what happens, is that when we start building relationship and we give our young people an opportunity to be able to dialogue, we'll see that they're able to grow from these experiences. And then what happens is they correlate, right, these mishaps, if you will, right, to real life and say, wow, I can see now, instead of me being, right, I was chasing the butterfly and it could have led me out into the parking lot, or it could have led me down, right, to hurting myself. They're able to learn from these experiences. So I just want us to be mindful when we're thinking about social emotional learning in these spaces and building these communities, right? We have to set expectations. We have to look at it as a team, right? We have to understand that social emotional learning is not, right? It's not a map, it's a compass. It helps guide us and show us the way, right? And so now, and again, going back to the self-awareness component, drop down in the chat, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? Hashtag one word of how you're feeling right now. And Laura said, hashtag impulse control, because definitely I was not able to manage my impulses, right? I was like, oh, vanilla Coke. So energized, mind blown, open-minded, energized, boosted, yes, inspired, empowered, right? Linty, somebody's just kidding. Enlightened, right? So when we think about building these spaces, and definitely, typically this training is a lot longer, right? Because we have to get deep. But I wanted to share with you all, right, some of the basics, the foundations of building that social emotional learning community. Because a lot of people are talking about, we were talking about this earlier before you all jumped on, is like, there's a lot of conversation and dialogue around social emotional learning. There's a lot of conversation about building community, but everything that we kind of talked about, as far as, like, even, for example, going back to setting expectations, some of our friendships and relationships would be a lot better if we set expectations, right? Or even boundaries for our relationships. Because what happens is, when we don't have a set expectation or a clear boundary, how do I know when I'm out of line? How do I know, right, if I'm hitting the mark? I'll share with you a frustrating story that I've been dealing with. We all know that for a lot of us, we're in virtual learning, we're doing distance learning, so we're not on site, we're not serving our young people face to face. And so I remember that, so what we've been dealing with is, what is the expectation of how many kids are supposed to show up, right? What is the mark? And right now, right, I see there's really no mark. Like, how many kids, whoever shows up that's the mark, right? Whoever shows up, right? But then you have people who are frustrated because they're like, we only have 4 kids showing up, right? But I have a program that slots for 84, 94 students. How do I make sure that I serve all these families? But this is why I want to talk about, when we talked about SEL, exploring, having that dialogue. So hopefully, right, this has giving you a foundational understanding of what it takes to build that social emotional learning community. I appreciate you all sharing how you all feel. And again, this ties back into SEL. And I want to highlight this piece is that, right, social emotional learning is not an additive. So what I want us to be mindful of is that it's what we're doing right now. And this is all a part of the work. It's like, oh, well, we just got on here and talked to each other. We just had conversation. We just had fun. That's SEL? Yes, it is, right? It's allowing us to reflect, to check in with ourselves, to see how we feel so that we can better serve our young people. Because as much as it's about me, it's not about me. And then also it starts with me, but doesn't end with me. All right, so I'm gonna pass it back over so we can get some surveys filled out. And if you wanna ask some questions down in the chat, I'll do that. I can answer some questions down in the chat.